If you look at your calendar right now and see a completely blank, empty afternoon, what is your first physical reaction?
Oh, sheer panic.
Right. Is it a sigh of relief? Or
Ugh.
is it just this creeping anxiety that you are, falling behind, that you're dropping the ball and someone else is outworking you?
For most of us, it's absolutely the panic. I mean, we treat an empty schedule the exact same way we treat an empty gas tank on a lonely highway.
Yes.
It's just a full-blown emergency.
An empty coffee pot in my house is a legitimate crisis, so I get it. We are so deeply conditioned to view emptiness as a failure.
Oh, completely.
Like, it means something is missing, it means something is broken, and we need to fix it by cramming it full of something, literally anything immediately.
Yeah, we just have to fill the void.
But today, we are exploring why the very thing modern society is utterly terrified of emptiness is actually the most expensive, powerful survival skill you can possess.
It is a really radical reframing, and honestly, it's incredibly necessary right now.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a stack of fascinating research and ancient Eastern philosophy, specifically Taoism and Buddhism, and bringing it straight into the chaotic, notification-heavy reality of our modern lives.
Which is where we all live, unfortunately.
Exactly. So, if you woke up today feeling a lot more like a doing machine than a human being, this conversation is specifically for you. Okay, let's unpack this. Where does this modern war on emptiness actually begin?
Well, it begins the very second we open our eyes. Think about your morning routine.
Oh, I'm already stressed.
Right. Before your feet even hit the floor, your screen is already lighting up. Emails, news alerts, social media tags.
Just a wall of notifications.
Exactly. And these notifications literally act as tethers. They instantly drag your attention into this overwhelming, rushing current of external data.
It's like you're being immediately assigned a role in 50 different narratives before you've even had a glass of water.
That's a great way to put it. And because we are reacting to this flood of external noise from the jump, our cognitive load spikes instantly.
Yeah.
We lose track of where our true self resides because we are forced into a purely reactive state.
Which means we spend the entire day defending against or responding to external stimuli.
Which is completely exhausting.
It's so exhausting. But we do it because the modern world equates a packed schedule and constant responsiveness with success.
Right, the hustle.
If your calendar isn't a solid Tetris block wall of colors, you just aren't hustling hard enough.
Yeah, you're falling behind.
So if we want to escape that trap, we first need to fundamentally redefine what empty actually means.
To do that, we have to look at Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. There is this brilliant centuries-old analogy of the clay pot.
Okay, I love this one.
It's so good. We spend all this time, energy, and craftsmanship molding clay, right? Shaping the outside, baking it to create a beautiful vessel. But the actual usefulness of that pot, the only reason it has any real value lies entirely in the empty space inside of it.
Because if the pot is just a solid block of beautifully fired clay, it's just a heavy paperweight.
Exactly.
You can't put anything into it.
Precisely. A cup that is already full of water simply cannot take in a single drop more. If you try to pour more in, it just spills over and makes a huge mess.
Yeah, it's useless.
Right. And when our lives are completely crammed to the absolute brim with schedules, meetings, podcasts, and just constant stimuli, we become that full cup.
Wow.
We become practically useless for any true creative generation or new insight because there is literally no room left for anything new to enter.
Okay, I use a smartphone storage analogy for this all the time, but let's take it a step further into how our brains actually process this.
Just do it.
It's not just about long-term hard drive storage, right? It's about your RAM, your working memory.
Yeah.
If you have 50 apps running in the background, your phone's battery drains in an hour and the whole system starts lagging. It honestly doesn't matter how incredible the processor is.
The machine just can't keep up.
Exactly. Our minds right now are walking around with 100 tabs open, blinking storage full, but we just keep mashing the download button anyway.
That is the perfect mechanical explanation of what's happening to our working memory. And Buddhist philosophy takes this concept of the empty cup even deeper with the idea of sunyata, which it translates to emptiness.
Which, I'll be honest, sounds incredibly intimidating. Like, emptiness sounds like nihilism to me.
It does, yeah. Because Western culture often mistranslates it as this terrifying vacuum of nothingness, like a black hole.
Right, just a void.
But what's fascinating here is that sunyata doesn't mean a void where nothing exists. It means being empty of the ego.
Oh, yeah.
It means being empty of judgment, and empty of our really rigid preconceived expectations.
I struggle with that translation, though.
How so?
Because if I empty myself of all expectations and ego, don't I just become a doormat in a competitive corporate environment?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, how do you separate emptiness from just letting people walk all over you?
That is honestly the most common misconception. Emptying the ego doesn't mean deleting your self-worth or, dropping your boundaries.
Okay.
In this context, the ego is the loud, constantly demanding voice that insists reality must perfectly match your desires.
Oh, I know that voice.
We all do. It's the voice that says, my boss should have phrased that differently, or traffic shouldn't be this bad.
Right.
When you are empty of those rigid demands, you finally gain the ability to see a situation exactly as it is, objectively, without the heavy filter of your own emotional outrage.
Oh, I see. So it's not about lacking a spine, it's about lacking the distortion.
Beautifully put, yes.
You stop fighting the reality of the traffic jam, which means you stop wasting energy being angry about it, and you just deal with it.
Exactly. You see the world clearly, which allows you to navigate it far more effectively.
Okay, so if that's the why, clearing our internal RAM, seeing reality without distortion, the obvious question is, how do we actually find this space?
Right, the practical application.
Because my brain, and I'm sure your brain listening to this, is constantly swirling with a storm of thoughts.
Well, the Eastern traditions offer a really beautiful visual for the mechanics of this. Imagine the true nature of your mind as the vast, open sky.
Okay.
It is endlessly stable, completely clear, and totally unbothered by the weather. Your chaotic thoughts, your anxieties, your endless to-do lists, those are just passing clouds.
They drift in, they block the sun for a minute, and they drift out.
Exactly.
The sky doesn't panic when a cloud appears.
Right. But our psychological tragedy is that we mistakenly identify as the clouds.
We think we are the weather.
Exactly. From a neurological standpoint, our brains have a massive negativity bias. We are hardwired to lock onto potential threats.
Which today usually look like angry emails or unpaid bills.
Yeah, not saber-toothed tigers anymore.
Yeah.
And because we focus so intensely on these stressors, we fuse our identity with them. We think, I am this anxiety.
Right. We embody it.
And we completely forget that we are actually the immovable sky existing right behind it.
We get so caught up in the storm that we forget we're the atmosphere. And there's another metaphor from our sources that really drives home how we make this worse for ourselves. The muddy water.
Oh, the muddy water is profoundly accurate.
Yeah, walk us through that one.
If you scoop a glass of water from a muddy river and you constantly stir it with a spoon, you will never, ever be able to see the bottom. The water will just remain opaque and chaotic.
And the stewing spoon is our constant busyness.
Yes.
It's the doom scrolling, the multitasking, the podcast playing at 2x speed while we try to cook dinner and text a friend simultaneously.
We think we are solving our problems by constantly agonizing over them, by aggressively stirring the water. But the reality of physics and of our minds is that only by stopping entirely and letting the sediment naturally settle to the bottom can clarity emerge.
Wow.
The water clears itself, but only if you stop agitating it.
Okay, I love a good metaphor, but let's get ruthlessly practical here. I have a life to live and chores to do.
We all do.
I can't just sit like a monk and watch water settle.
No, of course not.
But the philosophy actually accounts for this with a super mundane example, right? Washing the dishes.
Yes, Thich Nhat Hanh's famous example.
It teaches that you don't need to retreat to a silent monastery to practice emptiness. When you wash the dishes, just wash the dishes. Feel the temperature of the water. Focus on the texture of the soap.
Right, be entirely present.
Do not ruminate on the argument you had yesterday or the presentation you have tomorrow.
By doing that, you are actively creating a spatial barrier from your past regrets and your future anxieties. You are training your attention.
I'm going to push back on this, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because I have to finish that presentation eventually. The deadlines are very real. Isn't intensely focusing on a soapy plate just a socially acceptable form of avoidance? I mean, the work doesn't magically do itself while I'm admiring a fork.
It's a very fair challenge. But if we look at the mechanics of what washing the dishes mindfully actually achieves, it's not about avoidance at all. It's about training your nervous system.
Okay.
And this brings us to a crucial psychological concept: the space between stimulus and response.
The buffer zone.
Yes. Let's look at what happens when someone sends you a highly critical, borderline insulting email.
Oh, the worst.
Right. If your mind is completely dense, agitated, and full of clouds, if your muddy water is swirling your amygdala, The fear and threat center of your brain completely hijacks your system.
You see red.
You fire back an immediate defensive reply. You react blindly from ego, and inevitably that creates more conflict and suffering.
You escalate the situation because you didn't have the mental RAM to process it first.
Precisely. Practicing emptiness while doing the dishes is essentially a workout for your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for emotional regulation and complex decision-making.
Oh, okay.
You are building the mental muscle of the buffer zone.
Yeah.
So when that insulting email arrives, your brain doesn't instantly default to the amygdala hijack.
You pause.
You have the empty space to process the emotion, let the anger settle to the bottom of the glass, and then choose a mindful response.
Oh, wow. So washing the dishes isn't about ignoring the email. It's about upgrading my brain's operating system so that when I finally do open the email, I don't lose my mind and type something that gets me fired.
Exactly. Emptiness gives you the space to choose your response rather than being a victim of your own reactions.
Which naturally brings us to the next massive question.
Which is?
If this buffer zone stops me from doing something destructive, how does it help me actually get my proactive, positive work done?
Ah, the productivity angle.
Right. Because in a hyper-competitive capitalist system, doing nothing still sounds like a great way to fall behind. But paradoxically, this philosophy argues that doing nothing can actually make us vastly more effective.
This is where we introduce the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, which translates roughly to non-doing or effortless action.
Again, non-doing to a hustle culture mindset sounds like an excuse to take a nap.
It really does. But Wu Wei absolutely does not mean laziness or apathy.
Right.
It means acting without forcing things. It means deeply understanding the dynamics of a situation and allowing things to follow their natural course, rather than letting your ego become a rigid roadblock trying to control every micro detail.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When I try to visualize Wu Wei, I immediately think about the physics of swimming in the ocean.
Oh, that's a great visual.
If you get caught in a rip current and you panic and try to violently force your way straight back to shore against the water, you will drown in exhaustion.
Because you are fighting the entire ocean.
Exactly. But if you stop fighting, if you yield to the reality of the water, float, and swim parallel to the shore, you move out of the current effortlessly.
Yes.
That is Wu Wei. You survive and move forward by using the environment's momentum instead of thrashing against it.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the mechanics of it. When you aren't expending all your cognitive and physical energy fighting the current, you suddenly have the energy to navigate it.
Which changes everything.
It does. And from a neurological standpoint, this empty, unforced state is actually the birthplace of world-class innovation.
You're talking about the alpha state, right? Let's dig into how that actually works in the brain.
Yes. So throughout a normal workday, when we are intensely focused on a screen, answering emails, and forcing our brains to produce, we are operating in beta brainwaves.
Okay.
It's a state of high alert and focused attention. But you cannot sustain beta waves indefinitely without burning out.
Definitely not.
When we step away from the keyboard, go for a walk, and stop forcing the issue, when we allow the mind to become empty, our brain shifts into the relaxed alpha state.
And what's actually happening to our data in that alpha state?
This is the magic of what neuroscientists call the default mode network.
Right, the DMN.
When your conscious forcing mind clocks out, your subconscious mind goes to work. It takes all the scattered data, the articles you've read, the conversations you've had, and it starts organically connecting the dots in the background.
Wow.
That's why you can't force a brilliant aha moment while staring angrily at a blank Word document. Innovation requires the empty space of the alpha state to synthesize the pieces.
Which perfectly explains why every human being on Earth has their absolute best ideas in the shower.
Yes, exactly.
You're completely relaxed, the water is warm, you don't have your phone, and your mind is momentarily empty of demands.
Right.
Your default mode network just hands you the solution you were agonizing over for 3 hours at your desk.
You are washing the dishes, but for your entire body. And speaking of demands that block this alpha state, we have to look at one of the most massive drains on our modern cognitive energy, the curation of our digital identities.
Oh, this is huge. Social media.
The problem with social media, from the perspective of emptiness, is that it requires us to constantly build and maintain an avatar.
Right, a persona.
We are meticulously managing how we are perceived by hundreds or thousands of people. It makes our minds incredibly dense, fragile, and defensive.
It's exhausting. Every post, every comment is an exercise in ego management. You're constantly asking, does this make me look smart? Does this make me look successful?
Yes. And the philosophies suggest a profound countermeasure. Embracing the power of anonymity.
Being a nobody.
Practicing being a nobody sometimes. When you strip away the compulsive need to be recognized, validated, or liked online, you return a massive sense of lightness to your life.
You don't have to defend a persona if you aren't wearing one.
Precisely. If you're an empty cup, no one can knock you over and spill your contents.
I absolutely love that. Taking off the heavy armor of your personal brand just to exist as a human being for a while.
It's incredibly freeing.
But, and here is the reality check. If this emptiness is so powerful, if it makes us more creative, more resilient, and lighter, wait, I mean, why are we so utterly terrified of it?
Because we are. We really are.
Because we really, truly are. There was that famous psychological study where participants literally chose to shock themselves with mild electricity rather than sit alone in a completely silent room for 15 minutes. Why is the quiet so scary?
Because the noise acts as a highly effective anesthetic. People actively avoid emptiness because the exact moment the external notifications and podcasts stop, the scary internal truths emerge.
The mud settles, and you finally see what's actually resting on the bottom of the glass.
Yes. When you finally turn off the noise, you might suddenly feel your deep inner knots.
Yeah.
You might be forced to confront your loneliness, your relationship issues, or deep feelings of inadequacy. As long as you are busy, you don't have to look at them.
You could just keep stirring the water.
Right. But according to these philosophies, facing this terrifying void isn't a mistake. It is the mandatory first door to liberation. You simply cannot heal what you refuse to look at.
You have to sit in the quiet and let the monsters come out of the closet so you can realize they aren't going to kill you.
Exactly.
But, and this is crucial, there is a massive warning label attached to this in the Eastern traditions, right? The concept of mita samadhi.
Yes, mita samadhi translates roughly to wrong concentration or false emptiness.
Okay.
And it's a vital distinction to make, especially today when mental health is such a complex topic. True emptiness is absolutely not about dissociation.
Right, because I was going to ask, isn't checking out or dissociating just a biological defense mechanism when we are overwhelmed? How is that different from true emptiness?
Well, dissociation is a defense mechanism where your brain essentially pulls the plug to numb you from pain. It's a form of escapism.
Okay.
False emptiness is deciding to drop all your responsibilities, ignore your family, and completely check out so that others suffer while you claim to be finding yourself.
That just sounds selfish.
That is apathy. True emptiness, on the other hand, is equanimity. It is profoundly present and actively engaged with reality.
So you're still there.
You are fully tuned in to the world and your responsibilities. You just aren't filtering every single interaction through the selfish demands of your ego.
It's not about being a deadbeat disguised as a philosopher. You still chop wood and carry water. You just don't complain about the weight of the bucket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's active awakening, not a coma.
There's a beautiful analogy that captures this active engagement. The analogy of the master sculptor carving a Buddha statue.
I love this one.
When we think of self-improvement, we usually think of it as an additive process. Taking an online course, buying a new planner, learning a new framework.
Adding more to the cup.
Right. But emptiness is a process of subtraction. The sculptor doesn't build the Buddha out of thin air. They take a massive, heavy block of stone and they simply chip away everything that isn't the Buddha.
Yes.
They remove the excess, revealing the truth and the beauty that was already sitting there underneath.
It is the ultimate act of simplification. When your physical and mental clutter decreases, when you chip away the useless stone, the empty, usable space in your mind increases automatically.
Wow.
You don't have to go out and buy emptiness. You just have to stop hoarding the noise.
So synthesizing all of this into our daily routine, what does this actually look like? Because we will spend thousands of dollars on tech gadgets, biohacking supplements, and productivity apps to get a tiny mental edge, but we flat out refuse to invest in 15 minutes of pure silence a day.
It's wild when you put it like that.
Right. If our endless work, our ambition, and our hustle represent our fiery yang energy, is this daily 15 minutes of silence the cooling yin tax we absolutely must pay to avoid burning out completely?
Yin tax is a brilliant way to frame it, yes.
Yeah.
If your life is 100% fiery yang, constant action, constant output, constant consumption, zero rest, you will inevitably burn yourself to ash.
Yeah.
The emptiness, the yin, is the cooling, nourishing power. It is the necessary maintenance on your biological engine that actually allows you to sustain your drive over a lifetime.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener. True wealth in the modern world isn't about having the highest net worth, or the most followers, or the busiest calendar.
Not at all.
The ultimate flexed, the most expensive and rare piece you can acquire today is having absolute power over your own attention. It is possessing a mind that is calm enough and spacious enough that it doesn't require a constant drip feed of external stimuli just to feel okay.
And that leads to a profoundly moving perspective shift when we zoom out.
How so?
When we look at the entire arc of a human life, we have to consider the end of it. Ultimately, on our final days, we are not going to be craving the wealth we hoarded. We are not going to care about the metrics of our digital identity.
No.
What we will crave more than anything is a peaceful mind, a mind free of worry and regret.
Just to be able to let go without fear.
Exactly. Therefore, practicing this skill of emptiness today, learning to detach from the ego, learning to sit comfortably in the quiet, is not just a clever productivity hack for your career.
It's much deeper than that.
It is much, much deeper. You are actively preparing yourself to eventually face death with total peace, wakefulness, and grace. You are practicing the ultimate art of letting go.
Wow. That really puts an overflowing email inbox into perspective, doesn't it? It's not just about getting through a chaotic Tuesday afternoon. It's about how you approach the absolute end of the road.
It changes the stakes completely.
It really does. So, as you go into your week, we want to leave you with this final thought to mull over. If emptiness, the control over your own time, attention, and mental space is the ultimate modern wealth, how does that change the way you view the digital landscape?
That's a huge question.
Think about the apps, the platforms, and the corporations that are desperately trying to fill every single second of your day with notifications and endless scrolling. Are they genuinely offering you connection and value? Or are they literally mining and stealing your most valuable, irreplaceable asset? Dare to be a blank page this week. Dare to be an empty cup. Stop trying to forcefully cram every second of your day with content and noise. Allow true wisdom and creativity the necessary space to write their own story in your life. Because remember, if your internal storage is entirely full, you can't capture any of the beautiful new things trying to make their way to you. Let the sediment settle. Clear the space.